Hi guys, my name is Christina McCormick and I will be focusing my project on the issues within social influence, conformity, and the ties they have to social media. I believe that there is a true issue in our world today with us feeling as though we have to do things, and my main focus is the words have to. We feel we have to date, we have to be on social media, we have to have a social presence, and we sort of have to follow the crowd. And that can cause bigger issues than we may think. Social influence is the ways in which we change our behavior to meet the environment around us. And an example of this might be joining social media even though we may not really have the thought to do it if we were just going with our own thoughts and wishes. We might not even want to, but we see others around us and friends around us on social media, so we start our presence on it, and a lot of the time we're starting our presence on social media at very young ages. I myself remember starting social media probably around the age of 14, and it was definitely due to social influence. I had so many friends on social media. Conformity is the act of matching attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to group norms. An example might be agreeing with an opinion in a group of people because you might feel another way, but everyone that you're in the group with feels one way, so you sort of just go with what they're saying. And this is a great example, this little picture on the screen. Sort of follow me, and it's one sheep and another sheep and another sheep, and they're all kind of following each other, but where are they going? Pretty much nowhere. Social media includes apps such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and more recently in the last couple of years, a lot of dating apps kind of play into the social media realm as well. Some dating apps are Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, Match. Those are pretty much the most common ones that you might be familiar with. The first study that I read was focused on social, emotional, and cognitive reasons for social influence. This is a very important study to bring in right away because of its relation to our major ways of being influenced. We are all influenced in different ways, but I feel, again, that the three that are the most important and they all kind of work together is the way that we go with conformity and how we are influenced in our social media world. In this study, we find that the differences found between collectivism versus individualism affects our social identity, and it also affects the emotions that we go through in the virtual community. So basically what this means is that we are affecting our social identity and our emotions when we use different social media apps. The differences found in individual characteristics and collective ones have a serious effect on social identity and emotions in relation to the virtual community. This graphic here is one that I felt was so important to bring into this study because the study talks about how we're affected by social media, and this is just the most kind of realistic way. If you've ever seen like a couple at a restaurant sitting down and kind of on their phones, I can never understand that, but this is a lot of the ways in which we communicate today. It's how we know how to communicate. Our virtual world is so big, and so sometimes this is how we even communicate with people that might be right next to us. Is nonconformity weird? Conformity and nonconformity. This study was important because the main point of this project is to understand how conformity has integrated into our social influence. In this second study by Clegg, we examined variation in how much adults from different cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds consider behavioral conformity when evaluating children's intelligence and behavior. So this study basically took adults looking at children and kind of viewing how children learn and how children do conform. We may not think of children when we think of social media, but it is important to understand where our ability to use conformity comes from. And that's really important. And like I said in the beginning, one of my first social media profiles was actually, I had to be probably around the age of 12. I started a MySpace. All of my friends had MySpaces. I had to lie about my birthday to even be able to create the page. But other than the fact that I had to lie about the year I was born, it was actually pretty easy to start a profile and kind of conform and go and follow the way that my other friends were going, and start my social media presence at a very, very young age. The results of the study about conformity demonstrate cultural variation in beliefs about the relations between competency, creativity, and conformity. The study provides the first experimental evidence for cultural variation in the impact of children's conformity on adults' judgment of intelligence. This alludes to the fact that we can learn our abilities to conform when we are children, which can affect us as we get older and make decisions on social media. We all use a form of conformity, so if it is weird or not weird to conform, it's really an individual approach. Social influence in younger adults was more of a topic that I wanted to touch on because the millennial population was one that I was focused on. For this example, we learn that children and adolescents are risk takers, and their biggest risks are taken with their risk images, their willingness to use, and their intentions to use. The relationships between social media force us to rethink the nature of intimacy, personal connections, and a wider range of relatedness. This was an important study because it introduces our big problem area, in my opinion, which is social media. The emergence of new technology for connecting people has led to key changes in informal rules and norms in relation to social interaction. Digital dating is another topic that is added to our social media interactions. Not only are we creating friendships and bonds on social media platforms, we are also roped into dating on social media platforms as well. The study by Chamber also mentioned that options to add relationship status to our Facebook profiles were flooded with options of labeling our status. Digital dating is such an important topic to talk about in social media because we're all college students and we can kind of relate to that thought of when we go on Facebook and we have these options. Are we single? Are we in a relationship? But we have to kind of label ourselves. Facebook official status has come to stand in for exclusivity. Many people are uncomfortable about displaying their relationship status, so they might leave it blank, or they might play a joke and just take it as a joke and select that they're in a relationship with a friend's dog or a best friend. And then we have the people who constantly change their relationship status. I'm sure that we all follow someone who's constantly in a relationship or constantly it's complicated. But people having the option to update our relationship status so much is not really something that we should be worrying about. Different relationships could create a sense of PSI on social media that signal the importance of customers' relationships with the service that a hotel brand gives gives to its other customers. A sense of feeling connected with the brand further led to increased feelings of brand connection and enhanced customer brand usage intentions. So this situation's cool because we kind of see the better part of social media. So we learned about how social media can be sort of bad for our psyche, but here we learn more of a positive situation for social media, and that how a business can use social media to kind of connect with their customers and create a bigger relationship with them. Liquid love was a fascinating topic that I found while researching for this project. Mobile dating apps are particularly important to modern dating and sexual activity. They offer experiences that are distant from those provided by dating websites. So, some common apps that are used are Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, and there's always a new one popping up. If you've watched TV lately, there's always a new app. I actually had no idea about Bumble until I saw a commercial for it. And it's cool because when you think about how you would find love, I wouldn't necessarily think to find it online or to find it in an app, but so many more people are using this as a way to find love or find sexual relationships, and each app has a different way of kind of connecting with a person. For Tinder, you will swipe left if you're not interested and swipe right if you are interested, and you might possibly match with that person. And then you are able to be kind of in a area with them, and you can speak to them via message, but they're completely strangers. And then, for example, with Bumble, you can, again, match with people, but the girl has to make the first move and kind of message you first in order to start an interaction. This is important because these apps are more about an instant connection between strangers and are free. With a dating app website, you may have to pay money to be matched with others, but in an app, you can literally download it and find love. Who uses dating apps? The internet has become a powerful social intermediary. It has partially displaced the role of traditional matchmakers such as family, friends, and coworkers. It has come to a point where you hear more stories of love or relationships found online than you do about people just meeting organically. This is so true. Out of 5 or 6 of my friends that are dating right now, 4 of them are using social media apps to find a partner. And I don't want to necessarily label this as bad, but I do want to kind of focus back on the fact that we're conforming. We're kind of following the way people date, and we're kind of changing what we might think and using our social influence and using conformity to join these apps where it might be better to meet somebody organically. But there's really no right or wrong way. That's really important for me to talk about. But it is also kind of cool to think about how all of these people now are using kind of very similar ways to find dates and find love and find sex, where it wasn't like this years ago. Another shocking find by Chan was that people's attitude predicted the intent to seek romance via dating apps, and the use of these apps were normal and predicted the intent to seek sex more than relationship. So the use of apps is more based on finding sexual partners for most participants. The illusion of intimacy deals a lot with the social facade that is found on these social media profiles and dating apps. Often we are shown a picture and a witty bio, and that is all we know about the person staring at us on the screen. But we feel as though that is enough for attraction. I kind of focus this back to our photos on Blackboard and how we have those avatars, and that's really all we have to go on when we're communicating back and forth with each other. And it's kind of the same thought about a dating app. You kind of have this picture and you're talking back and forth with this person, but all you have are the pictures that they posted. You don't have, any of their body language. You don't have their scent. You don't have any other kind of characteristics that you would base attraction off in real life. You don't have that when you're on a social media dating app. We know very little about these new types of relationships and why we are so inclined to find love and friendships on the web. Computers have changed not only just the way we work, but the way we love. Falling in and out of love, flirting, cheating, having sex have become part of the modern way of living and really the modern way of loving. Emotions are associated with closeness and openness, but this seems to be contradicted with all of the love and sex that we try to find on the internet. How is an online affair where two people involved may never see or meet each other different from an affair in the real world? Is online sex still cheating on your partner? Why do people tell complete strangers their most intimate secrets? What are the rules of engagement? So, we fall in love or into attraction with a photo or a bio when we are so much more than those things. There's not anything wrong with finding love or sex on the internet, but again, this brings us back to the way that we are influenced to use these social platforms. We're influenced to make these decisions on who we should be having a relationship with or who we should be having sex with based on what others around us are doing, how others around us are dating. If we're in a group of 10 new people and 5 or 6 of those people are in relationships with people that they met online, we're more inclined to try it because we're being influenced and we're seeing, okay, people around me are doing it, so I'm going to give it a try. Or I'm feeling a little bit lonely, so I'm going to go and try this thing that we don't know what the person on the other side, we don't know what their intentions are. And that's basically why I'm bringing in the thought of dating apps, because a lot of the times I believe that most of the reason why we might choose to use one is because we're being influenced by those around us, we're conforming to what we see around us, and we're giving it a shot. It was integral for me to include dangers that our lax social media presence might include. For example, I read about Amy, who met Paul online. Paul sexually assaulted her after they met on a dating app, Plenty of Fish. This states the dangers of all that can happen in meeting someone online, and how even though we are influenced to date online, we need to be very cautious. So just because we have a few friends who might have found meaningful relationships on social media or on a dating website, we need to be cautious about the fact that dating online means talking to someone that you know nothing about, who could or could not be lying. And then if we choose to meet that person in public, we need to be very cautious about how we go about doing that. It's common for women on dating apps to receive unsolicited sexual advances from male users. A 2016 Consumers Research study found that 57% of female respondents, compared to 21% of men, reported feeling harassed on the dating apps that they used. Most users can brush off an offensive message or two, but with relentless or vindictive advances, the impact can be severe. One user says the crude comments she receives on dating apps, both from strangers and from people she knows in real life, make her feel worthless. This is another actually very sad part about using different social media platforms. It kind of gives us, if you have a public profile, it kind of gives strangers access to your everyday life and to personal parts about your life. And if you have a private profile, you have a little bit more ability to kind of filter out those people that you know and the people that you don't. But being a stranger, being able to send you a message and saying something crude and then continuing to be able to say that, you kind of put people that don't know you to be able to have full access to you. Online communication applications such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter are some of the most frequently used internet applications. A higher level of social loneliness and less perceived social support enhance the risk for a pathological use of social media. The effect of psychopathological symptoms such as depression and social anxiety, as well as individual characteristics such as self-esteem, self-efficacy, and stress vulnerability, are mediated by internet use and dysfunctional coping mechanisms. So I want to just talk about myself for a second. I definitely feel this sometimes with social media. Sometimes you'll open your social media and you'll see like just a trigger, whether it's, when I see, for me, I love animals, and when I see those videos about, like animals being abused and stuff on Facebook, I feel so bad, and I try to volunteer as much as I can. It's been a little bit hard with COVID, but I love animals. I have a dog. I'm obsessed with him. And so when I see that, I get so emotional, and I have to shut my phone off. And so it makes sense that there's a higher level of social loneliness, and there's also a higher level of depression and social anxiety when it comes to social media. If we're using social media so much that we're not going out and actually socializing in the real world, then we're kind of creating this space where it's harder to get out into the real world because we're so used to our world being on our phone. So what does this all mean? Our use of social media, especially in finding love on dating apps, is in turn making us a more lonely and low self-worth set of people. It teaches us the wrong way to find and accept love, so that in turn, when our reality is love and relationships cannot be available 24/7, as our phones can, we can see it as a reason to lessen our worth. Basically, this is all a vicious cycle, with our emotions and our self-worth at the hand of it all. I think we have to make really smart decisions when we are making decisions about our social media presence, and I think that as much as our social influence might be there, we need to, again, really think about what we're doing and think about the choices that we're making and how it affects our emotional and physical well-being as well.